My name is Rob Gershon and I'm a type 1 diabetic. I have a wife who I love very much. By the time you see this, you'll have read a lot of things about me, which is why I wanted to explain myself. What? Oh no, this is a video about the Freestyle Libre. It's a piece of diabetes kit which monitors your blood glucose levels all the time. You can take readings every minute, and I'm sure it takes a test from your blood every 5 minutes, although it might be every 15. I'm not the greatest person at reading instructions. It's really good. That's the headline news. Diabetes management is all about information, and it's a really good tool for keeping information about what your diabetes have been doing over the last, over the last 90 days is how much stays in the reader. It is really useful for people like me who perhaps don't finger prick test as often as we should do, although as a piece of gear it doesn't replace finger prick testing. I'll talk a little more about that later when I talk about some of the cons. The pros though are mostly to do with data and how you can keep tabs on what has happened whenever you inject yourself with insulin, or whenever you eat, or whenever you sleep, or whenever you exercise. Normally finger prick testing only gives you an immediate reading for the here and the now, and this is its strength because those are the readings which you decide how much insulin to inject yourself with. But they also only give you the current blood sugar glucose reading, so you don't know whether your levels are rising or lowering. This is where the Freestyle Libre is really handy, because you get a history of when you went up and when you came down. In practical terms, you can't feel the sensor in your arm. You're unaware of it very quickly. It's quite small, and unless you are a deep sea diver perhaps, or an astronaut, or a test pilot, or possibly if you wear a bra regularly, you don't really need to be too aware of it on the back of your arm. You have to be a little bit careful in the shower where you might scrub it off, and you're not supposed to keep it submerged underwater for more than 30 minutes. But this shouldn't be a problem as long as you're aware of it. It's really convenient to use. You just pick up the reader, which is like any other finger prick testing unit, and you swipe it past the back of your arm and it gives you a reading of your blood sugars. This is really convenient compared to finger prick testing, which can be a little bit painful, and sometimes you're not in the right public environment to do it. I don't really have a problem drawing blood from myself in public, but it's not to everyone's taste. If your schedule's a little irregular, like mine, then it's really useful for keeping tabs on what's happened since you last did a test. My finger prick testing isn't all that regular, or it hasn't been historically, and because it only gives you an immediate reading, I have no real idea of what's happened in between the time since my previous test. The reader for the sensor keeps information for up to 8 hours, and it produces a graph, so you get a really quick, easy way of looking at the data, and you know straight away whether you've been up or whether you've been down. It's great to have the graphs and the data about your sugar levels in the reader, but there's also some really helpful and quite expansive reporting software which you can download for free. This just basically lets you plug the reader in via USB cable to a PC or a Mac, and you can get some really helpful data about what effect your insulin has on you, what effect your food has on you, and certainly over the longer term it's much easier to see when patterns are occurring, and this is a really helpful tool for getting you to change the amount of insulin you give yourself, or perhaps just change the pattern of your daily food intake. For me, it's already changed my behaviour because I occasionally snack without kind of noting it down, or without taking any insulin for it, and I become much more aware of that because I'm conscious that the machine will keep a note of where my sugar levels go up or down. So where the finger prick testing might have allowed me to kind of have these windows where there was no data on what I was eating, now I can't really get away with anything, which I suppose is a good thing. I'm already wondering what I'm going to do without the sensor. Those of us who were lucky enough to get one sensor just to have a go with and see what our experience of it was like aren't going to be able to get any more unless we buy them. It costs £104 for 2 sensors, and I simply can't afford that amount of money each month. Ironically, the thing that means that my lifestyle isn't particularly set, that I'm a full-time carer, also means that that pricing is just way out of my range. It's not all about the money, of course. You have to take into account the long-term savings of keeping somebody with type 1 diabetes healthy. There are a lot of costs associated with having people's feet cut off and other side effects of really bad diabetes control, and the level of granularity in the data here could make a huge saving, and I guess that's why the sensors, at least now, are so expensive. Having said that, I'd just like to thank my excellent diabetes consultant, Dr. Vayers, and my diabetes nurses, June and Caroline, who are also excellent. You know, the whole service that we get down here is probably second to none. It's really patient focused, and just having the privilege of being able to test this kit and give some feedback on it is really appreciated. After these 14 days are up and the sensor comes off and I don't have access to this information anymore, I know that I've still got their support, and in a way I'm not sure if it's the technology or the information that the technology gives me that has kind of reinvigorated my interest in my own sugar levels. I know it sounds weird to suggest that I don't look after my blood sugars all the time, but I read the internet. I know I'm not the only diabetic who sometimes just wants to put the illness aside. It can be a little bit wearing sometimes, and when you're busy it gets in the way. I know that's no excuse for indulging in behaviour which makes me, or could potentially make me, more ill. But you know, maybe that's the virtue of this kit, is that you can't hide away from yourself so much. Of course, you still have to voluntarily swipe it past your arm in order to find out what's going on, and it would be easy to ignore that in the same way it's easy to ignore finger prick testing if you don't want to do it. But this is a little bit less invasive, it is more convenient, and for people who like gadgets, I suppose, it is a bit more interesting. You know, maybe engaging patients in their own care is enough of an end to justify the cost. I don't know. You know, it's difficult to sort of put aside the financial cost, even though that's not my concern really. If you have £104 a month and £160 to get yourself set up with the sensor and the reader, then you should go for it. There's no better way to keep tabs on your diabetes and to help you manage your diabetes. If you haven't got that much money, you're probably going to wish you hadn't even tried it, because it's good enough that you'll want to keep it forever, and you're going to just have to either pitch to your GP or your CCG to try and get the money to fund you, or accept that there's a 2-tier health system here already. Hope this has been helpful. Cheers.